I reserve.
Gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 15 seconds to my colleague from Louisiana, Mr. Graves.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, everybody has a COVID memory. It might be the masks that were mandated on folks across the United States. It might be that cup of coffee that you tried to drink forgetting that your mask was on. It might be how we've seen incredible evolution.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman is recognized.
against my better judgment, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Graves.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman from Illinois for his evolution and thought there, and for yielding. Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, we've seen just an absolutely incredible experience going through COVID. It might be the mask mandates that were thrust upon people, and as I mentioned, it might even be a funny memory of people trying to eat or drink coffee through their mask, as I know I have. We've seen this evolution in the workforce where people are working remotely all over the United States, and we've seen millions and millions of people choose to leave the workforce. This is something that has affected so many people. We've seen multi-generational businesses close, and we've seen fledgling businesses surge as a result of COVID-19, as a result of this pandemic. We've seen record speed at which vaccines, plural, have been developed under Operation Warp Speed. We've seen treatment protocols that have evolved, and by some measure, we've seen up to a million Americans that have lost their lives. Mr. Speaker, there's so much history behind COVID-19, behind this pandemic. There have been things that have been just absolutely remarkable, like the innovation in our pharmaceuticals in developing vaccines, innovation in technology with the evolution of incredibly convenient technology like Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting or other technologies allowing people to video conference, sometimes wearing shorts and pajama pants with their suit up top. This has been absolutely amazing, watching what's happened. But perhaps, Mr. Speaker, the most powerful impact of COVID-19 is not necessarily the successes and failures, the misfires, the things that have worked well, but it's been our personal losses. Mr. Speaker, the sponsor of this bill, Congresswoman Julia Ledlow from my home state of Louisiana, lost just an incredible man, a man who had a servant's heart, a man who cared so much for those that couldn't necessarily fight for themselves. Congressman-elect Luke Ledlow was elected to represent the small communities around Louisiana and around this nation. I'll say it again, to fight for those that were in many cases incapable of having the voice by themselves that was needed to change policy, but collectively, Congressman-elect Ledlow was going to change that. And I want to thank Congresswoman Ledlow, Luke's wife, and the representative from that area for having the leadership, for bringing this bill up, for making sure that we don't ever forget about all of the powerful lessons learned from COVID-19, that we don't forget about all of these powerful people, the heroes that lost their lives, in some cases caring for others, in some cases those people that were on the front lines trying to allow this country to continue, our economy to continue, our society to continue. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank Congresswoman Ledlow for her leadership on this legislation. I want to thank her for recognizing all the lives that were lost in the history here. And I urge adoption of the bill and yield back.
Reserve.
Gentleman from